Loveland looks west and sees this looming in the foothills: mandatory evacuations and an intense firefight to keep the Alexander Mountain fire away from neighborhoods. Denver's top public safety leader faces a new gender discrimination suit.
This administration ran on a platform of equity and inclusion. That's not just a campaign promise. That's the law.
As this state's most prominent election denier goes on trial this week, a key ally openly threatens law enforcement in Colorado. And not a great start for our adopted Olympic team. But hey, someone has to finish last, even among the best in the world. This isn't the best newscast in the world, but we'll try not to be the worst. Tonight on Next. A wildfire is putting up a tower of smoke west of Loveland right now. Firefighters have a fleet of planes that are dropping water as people along Highway 34 are evacuated. The Alexander Mountain fire started burning near the Roosevelt National Forest around 10:30 this morning and is since spread to about 365 acres. Growing still. No containment on it. No buildings have burned. Can give you a live look at the fire from our camera at Bow Mountain. Obviously, there and most places, there's a lot of dry brush after the heat that we've had. Luckily, the wind is not driving this thing aggressively toward Loveland. I want to show you the evacuation zones. There are mandatory get-out orders for the places there in red. So this is kind of a long Highway 34 going west up the hill from Loveland. So mandatory evacuation Drake to the Dam Store along Highway 34 and County Road 18 east from Pole Hill to Pinewood Reservoir. Then there are some voluntary evacuation zones where people have been told to get ready to go. There are evacuation centers set up at Namakwa Elementary School and the Estes Park Events Complex. I want to bring in meteorologist Corey Rappenhagen. Corey, obviously winds are going to be some kind of factor, nothing like the 70, 80 mile per hour wind gusts that we've seen during some of the terrible fires like the Marshall Fire.
Exactly. When those winds get 60 to 70 miles per hour, all you can do is really get out of the fire's way and let it do its thing. At least with these wind gusts that we're seeing today, it's giving the firefighters a chance here. And we've seen a lot of aviation assets putting water and slurry down on this fire today. And that is also helping the fire to move very slowly. The wind gust forecast is pretty decent. Here tonight, we'll get some gusts, maybe 30 miles per hour up near the fire zone, which is not too concerning, but not great. But then tomorrow, the winds will be similar to where they were today, 15 to 25 miles per hour. That may allow those firefighters to start getting in there with the hand crews and start digging out containment lines. As far as the wildfire smoke, that's going to be an issue for all of us. Not only will we have our local smoke now, but look at all the smoke coming in from the west here. That's going to stay. You'll notice that over the next few days, all the way through Wednesday and likely beyond, as that same flow comes from the west here. We have air quality alerts for wildfire smoke and for ozone pollution for tomorrow, and we'll crank up the heat. I'll be talking about heat advisories, more hot, dry weather coming our way.
The head of hiring and discipline for Denver's Public Safety Department just accused her boss of gender discrimination, says she was kept in the dark about job openings and demoted to make way for a less experienced man. When the city got put on notice of this, our Marshall Zellinger was the first to learn about the complaint.
All right, so proceeding then, the agency calls Ms. Mary Dulacki.
That city employee with her hand raised, taking an oath, that's Mary Dulacki.
I do.
She handles the hiring and discipline for police officers and firefighters. This is video of an appeal of one of the disciplinary actions she oversaw. Today, Dulacki filed her own complaint against her boss, Public Safety Director Armando Saldate, accusing him of gender discrimination.
It's basically a request to the state of Colorado to investigate allegations of discrimination.
Dulacki's attorney, Paula Greason, described the 4-page complaint as Dulacki being kept in the dark of job openings and higher pay.
She's asking questions. Why am I being paid less? Why am I not being told about these promotional opportunities?
In the complaint, Dulacki says Saldate demoted her title from Chief Executive Deputy Director to Chief Compliance Officer, and that she was not given the opportunity to apply for an internal job despite city personnel rules requiring eligible internal candidates to be informed. She ultimately emailed a complaint to the city attorney's office detailing those concerns and claiming a less experienced man was given a position she had no opportunity to apply for, who was now paid significantly more than her despite pay equity laws and her seniority.
Mary Dulacki did, again, what I think a lot of women try to do, try to address this privately.
In a brief statement, Mayor Mike Johnston's spokesperson said she cannot comment on the complaint, but said in part, quote, Mayor Johnston and his administration are committed to ensuring the city and county of Denver embodies the diversity of our city and lives its value of equity.
I have not talked directly with the mayor, but he's put the people in charge to carry out his vision, and that's not happening.
The mayor's office is not aware of the specifics of the complaint we just went through, but the spokeswoman tells me the commitment to equity stands. The Public Safety Department has not seen the details yet either. The complaint goes through the state's Civil Rights Division, so it's the state that enforces the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act. And I checked with the Public Safety Department. The salary difference between the two right now is about $19,000. The man making $19,000 more than Dulacki.
Significant. All right, Marshall, thank you very much. A key ally of former Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters is threatening violence against law enforcement in Colorado just as Peters goes on trial this week for breaching a voting system. Former Overstock CEO Patrick Byrne has said that he put $1 million into Peters' defense. The former Republican clerk admits to sneaking somebody into her office's voting system as they unsuccessfully looked for evidence of election rigging. Her felony trial for that begins this week. Peters is aligned with a bunch of far-right figures who have talked openly of political violence. Here's what Burns said on a public social media chat Thursday about the law enforcement bringing this case in Colorado.
They should be throwing in the towel and just surrendering and dropping this case against Tina, because those who don't are going to end up facing a piano wire and a blowtorch before this is over, if I have anything to do with it. So I know that's probably another felony, but threatening them like that, but there we are.
The Grand Junction Sentinel reports that the judge in Peters' case will not allow her defense team to tell jurors that elections are rigged by Denver-based Dominion voting systems. That conspiracy theory started with Coloradans and was echoed clear up to Donald Trump at one point. Peters' ally, Byrne, is now claiming that he recently hacked the Venezuelan government, and it is Venezuela that is in election rigging cahoots with Dominion.
This is all Venezuelan junk. All this software is Venezuelan junk. It's just masked to look like it's a company in Denver. It's not a company in Denver.
Peters has become a star and a martyr on the far-right fringe. Her case has repeatedly been delayed as she has fired teams of her own lawyers and unsuccessfully tried to have the case thrown out. She claims that she's a target of political retribution. I want to return now to our coverage of the Alexander Mountain Fire, and our Steve Staker is up there at the roadblock on Highway 34, County Road 29. Steve?
Kyle, we've actually seen some steady flow of traffic, people kind of moving out. There's been quite a lot of activity back behind me as they're trying to get some horses out from Sylvandale Guest Ranch, which is a little bit further down Highway 34. You look at the size of the smoke plume behind me, that has grown significantly in the last few hours since we were back for a news conference with the sheriff's office. In fact, the sheriff at the time said the fire was about 330 acres. I wouldn't be surprised if it's grown significantly the next time they map it from the air. From the ground, it looks like a big fire, obviously, with kind of moving through timber and grass and brush, all the typical kinds of fuels that you would expect. The good news that we hear from Larimer County officials is they have not seen any structures that are involved in this fire. They are working, though, to try to get more resources to try to help them out, because that is all rugged terrain where this fire is burning. So really the only way they can fight it right now is from the air, a lot of aircraft fighting it. We did earlier today talk to a woman here at the roadblock who was trying to get in touch with her dad, who lives in the area of a mandatory evacuation. About 2,600 contacts, 2,600 phones got a mandatory evacuation. She was pleading with him to get out, even said on the air, I need my dad to get out, because she called him, and several hours later, he still wasn't getting out.
2 hours ago.
And you said, Dad, you need to get out.
He's under mandatory evacuation and he was still at the house.
Keep bugging him.
Yep, so I had to have the sheriff call him.
I was going to say, you walked over to the Colorado State Patrol trooper here and said, here, you take the phone.
All right, I needed a higher authority, apparently.
Well, as soon as we got what I felt was everything that we needed to have done. And so headed down the hill. I had my truck pointed downhill, ready to go. I could have left in seconds.
He was ready. He was ready to get out if he needed to get out. He said everything was all right. He looked to see where the fire was, made sure he had time to pack everything up. Now, it's unclear at this time how many evacuated in that mandatory evacuation zone. That's going to be important, Kyle, because they need to talk about how many homes are threatened in order to get more resources here. And with all the fires burning around the country, it's tough to get resources right now.
Very understandable. Steve Sager for us in Larimer County. Thank you, Steve. Your generosity for Colorado's nonprofits through your weekly Word of Thanks microgiving campaigns has just passed the $13 million mark. You did that within the last few days when you raised more than $40,000 for Littleton's Graceful Cafe. That total is a combination of your one-time weekly donations and those of you who've been giving to the Word of Thanks Fund, where your monthly recurring gift gets divided among all the nonprofits that we feature. If you know of an organization making a positive impact anywhere in Colorado, shoot me a note, please. I read each and every email that comes to next@9news.com.
It really looks like what happened is that people voted for change and the government stole the election, essentially.
With so many Venezuelans fleeing home and ending up in Denver, what happened there yesterday could ripple here.
I'm meteorologist Corey Reppenhagen with the 9 News Weather Impact Team as we look out across Denver here today. Thankful to get a little bit of shade over the city on a day that we hit a record high temperature of 99 degrees. Tying the record last set back in 2005. And there's more heat on the way for tomorrow. We have a heat advisory in place across the Front Range where temperatures could reach up to 101 degrees. Here is the forecast, and just about all of the eastern half of Colorado has a chance to hit that 100-degree mark tomorrow, and it'll come with no rain. Here's the futurecast showing tomorrow. We may be lucky to get a few clouds in the afternoon and evening hours, but no precipitation in the state, and it'll stay that way. Look at the red area down here showing high pressure for the next few days, starting to build and strengthen for tomorrow and the days ahead, which mean we are in for some long, dry spell here. 7 days, very hot and dry conditions with no relief in sight.
If you ever doubted that international events impact our lives here, look at the sheer number of Venezuelans who have fled their country and ended up in Denver. The policies of socialist autocrat Nicolas Maduro have led to an economic crash there and a mass exodus from Venezuela. Maduro claims that he won yesterday's election to stay in power. The U.S. and other countries are skeptical if that's true. Our Angeline McCall looks at what happened and what may happen next.
It's important to share what he knows.
Because I care about my country.
Just this weekend, DU professor and economist Francisco Rodriguez contributed to a New York Times article.
It states, Francisco Rodriguez, a Venezuelan economist and professor of international affairs at the University of Denver, said he could foresee 3 possible outcomes.
This is his way of explaining what is happening in Venezuela.
Because my country has suffered this huge collapse in living standards.
This weekend, Venezuelan voters cast ballots in a historic election.
Lines outside a polling station in Caracas.
The sitting president, Nicolas Maduro, has claimed victory as people cast doubt.
Given the way that all of the evidence that we have seen up until now is pointing to, it really looks like what happened is that people voted for change and the government stole the election, essentially.
For many, yesterday was a day that held a vote that could mean something.
So there's a lot of energy around this possibility of change and a lot of excitement. And that's how people voted. They voted thinking that change was possible.
Overnight, realization that change may not come for a country that doesn't necessarily have a democratic voting process.
So these are very slanted elections. They're not free and fair.
And tomorrow, despite the uncertainty that will happen next, Rodriguez will keep sharing so more people will understand.
Those expectations of change completely dashed.
We also asked Professor Rodriguez if he expects that more people would flee the country if President Maduro is in power for another 6 years. He said it's too early to tell, but what we do know is that 25% of the population of Venezuela has left, largely within the past decade. Many of them fled as early as 2015 and 2016 to other countries like Colombia or Peru, and later immigrated to the United States in the past couple of years or so.
Quarter of the population. I mean, obviously that exacerbates an economic collapse in and of itself. Angeline McCall, thank you. Our strategy to always root for an Olympic underdog has not paid off yet, because there's no medal for 43rd place. And our man in Paris joins us with the most French thing we've seen today. That's next. After 3 full days of Olympic competition, Team USA is dominating in Paris. 20 medals so far. The first Coloradan to medal, road cyclist Chloe Dyer from Colorado Springs. She was the favorite to win gold in the individual time trial on the bike, but she crashed on the wet course in Paris. Ended up with bronze. 36 countries have medaled so far. Sadly, not our friends from Albania. If you have been with Next for a while, you know that we adopt a different underdog country every Olympics. Albania, the Colorado of the Balkans, as it's called. Basically, it's just us calling it that. They have never won an Olympic medal. Albania's first shot at a medal in Paris was not a good shot, at least by air pistol standards, and sadly, that was her event. Manjola Konini, 48 years old, didn't technically finish last in the women's 10-meter air pistol competition because she placed 43rd of 45 shooters, finishing ahead of 2 women who were disqualified. So, yeah, basically she was last. But there is no shame in losing to these shooters from South Korea. Get a look. They look like assassins from the future. They took the gold and silver. Like, that is legitimately intimidating. So Konini has another shot in a second event, but let's be honest, Albania's best hope probably are their wrestlers this year. We and the dozens of Albanians across Colorado will not be discouraged by the early going here. If anybody knows how to pull themselves up by the bootstraps, it's a country whose second biggest export is leather shoes and shoe parts. Get in, viewers. We're learning about Albania. They have a small but mighty team of 8 athletes that we'll be following each day. So our Matt Renew is in Paris covering the games. Pardon me, let me put this down. Our Matt Renew is in Paris covering the games. You know, Matt's a guy who really likes to immerse himself in the experience, which inspired him to offer up a new twist on our old favorite. Here's Matt Renew with the most French thing we saw today.
Matt Renew here, and the most French thing I've seen today at the McDonald's. Ordering myself a Royale with cheese right here, and inside a pastry counter that has delicious muffins, donuts, more donuts, and then macaroons. Doesn't get any more French than that. Viva la 9 News.
Wait, there's Cheryl Preheim. There's Cheryl Preheim hanging out with Matt at the McDonald's in Paris. We all remember and love Cheryl Preheim. So, you know, Matt is working like day, night, and all the hours in between over the next few weeks, including on our Olympic Zone show coming up right after next. Tonight, Matt will have the story of a World War II soldier who later went on to win a medal. We'll be right back with your feedback. 9 News viewer named Becca writes in tonight about Albania. Says, I lived in this beautiful country for 2 years as a Peace Corps volunteer. And she says, it actually is a lot like Colorado in some ways. Beautiful mountains and great people. Actually heard that from a few folks who have been to Albania over the years. Also, where are my Albanians at? Like, I'm certain that there are at least a couple of Albanian folks here in Colorado. Maybe somebody who's watching the show or you know them. Get in touch. We'd love to share the joy here as we root for Albania over the next couple of weeks, along with Team USA. That gets a lot of love. Kyle, glad to see Corey reporting on the weather today. Is he wearing your jacket? That from Kate. No, Kate, he's not wearing my jacket. He sometimes wears similar styles, but in a men's size. See you next time.